Hi, I'm Sandra Hutchins. I'm the Sheriff Coroner of Orange County, and you're watching FACETS Television.
Welcome to FACETS Television. I'm Kevin McDonald, and with me today is Assemblyman Jose Solorio with the 69th Assembly District in California. Today we're going to talk about many of the issues that California faces, and in particular the issues that the Assemblyman covers on the committees that he's a part of. Thank you, Assemblyman Solorio, for joining us today. I really appreciate your taking your time out to talk with us. Can you start with the committees that you sit on?
Sure. I'm in the State Assembly. I represent the cities of Anaheim, Garden Grove, and Santa Ana. Represented about 400,000 residents here in Central Orange County. And I'm real pleased to serve on some excellent committees. I chair the Insurance Committee. I'm also on the Transportation Committee, the Local Government Committee, and the committee that all the money bills go to, which is the Appropriations Committee. So I'm able to do a lot of good work in the committees.
No, I think the Appropriations Committee, if I may, is actually, from the perspective of the citizens in your district, is actually a very good position to have an Assembly member in, is it not?
No, absolutely. You know, here in Orange County, we're fiscal conservatives. We want to make sure that any money that gets spent is spent well. And so through that committee, we're able to really see if a bill makes sense to fund or not.
So we'll make a real quick run here at, California. It's notorious across the country. We're having some difficulties right now, and there's been some struggle to get the budget. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Well,
every year is a struggle to get a budget in California, so this year is not anything new. We are, looking at another major deficit because the economy is still not where it needs to be. Also, when the economy is bad, certain expenses have to go up on the government side. We have more people that are in need of social services, particularly unemployment insurance, and so certain costs tend to go up when the economy is coming down, and that's what exacerbates the problem. But we're making progress, and to get a budget, it requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature in the Assembly and the Senate. So it's tough to get, but we have to have a budget whether we like it or not. Democrats and Republicans do need to come together. And we do actually have a governor that is willing to meet folks halfway, and so we're slowly but surely getting there.
So with that said, I think there's been a lot of propositions, and I know that you had pushed for a water bond that I was actually, believe it or not, a huge supporter of, even as a fiscal conservative, because I think it's a problem. Can you explain to the folks in your district and the other folks that may see this why water is such a big deal? It's more than just a drought.
Well, water is important just for life, and whether it's for plants, whether it's for livestock, whether it's for our own livelihood, we can't do without it, especially here in California. We all tend to forget that we essentially live in a desert. We just happen to be able to bring in a lot of water from Northern California and the Colorado River. And there the challenges are that, we've been getting historically more water from the Colorado River than we had rights to. And finally, all those other states are saying we want our share of the water. So we're seeing less water from the Colorado River. And then from Northern California, the state's been growing. And we really haven't upgraded our water infrastructure in about 50 years. So for 50 years, the legislature and the governor have been grappling for how to build towards the future. And so as we think about growth in California, as we think about water reliability, as well as maintaining our water infrastructure, it's absolutely necessary that we invest in our infrastructure, as well as create new policies to make sure, for example, of the folks in Northern California off the Sacramento River Delta area, that people aren't taking out more water than they should. Because that's essentially what happens now.
Agreed. And with that being said, I think that the issue in the Central Valley and with many of the levees that have, are basically earthen dams that without an earthquake are beginning to fall apart based on all kinds of reports. Are we really, if we don't do something, aren't we facing something that could be worse than Katrina at this point? I mean, we're going to have 25 million people without water, could flood our freshwater zones with salt water. I mean, why is it so hard to get the public to understand that this is more than just wanting to build new things?
You know, we've been fortunate in California with respect to our water situation that water just keeps coming, and we wake up in the morning and when we try to get a glass of water or take a shower, the water is there. So it's hard to focus in on the need to upgrade the levees, the need to create more sources, more ways of bringing the water throughout the state. And we do have a situation where if there's a major earthquake that most Californians, you know, 2/3 of our population or upwards, would not have access to clean, drinkable water, and not just for a day or a week. It would take, you know, 2-3 years for us to be able to get any new clean water from the Delta area if there were a major earthquake that would bring in salt water ultimately from the ocean into the Delta area that would make the water undrinkable.
So with that point, I mean, Katrina was this national tragedy, and while there's still a lot of cleanup to be done in the housing and some of the other things, the general life support ability is back. Water, power, the concept that, you know, the largest state in the nation, effectively in terms of population, would be without water. That's something that should be on every billboard, on every show, and I just don't understand why the legislature and the governor haven't made this. This is like 911 stuff. I mean, you know, what is it going to take to get more people invested in this discussion?
Well, I think last year the governor and the legislature did prioritize this. We passed a package of policy bills to begin to grapple with some of these issues, as well as we agreed to put a $11 billion bond on the ballot. Would have been on the 2010 ballot, but we've done some polling, and we think while there's quite a bit of support this year, that there's more willingness to support it in 2 years with the hope that the economy is better. Because, you know, although, you know, many like to say that, you know, bonds don't directly mean more taxes, we do got to pay for the debts and for the payments towards those bonds. So the thought is let's keep planning. Also, some of this infrastructure work takes some time anyway to get to the point of actual construction. So we're telling folks that are planning these infrastructure projects to keep planning, and that we'll have a bond you know, on the ballot in 2 years that would then provide some resources to, at that point, construct new projects.
So are you going to drive the public education? Because I think more than the campaign at the last minute, this has to be something, because again, as a fiscal conservative, I'm looking at this going, yeah, I understand it's more taxes. I hate to even have the words come out of my mouth, but I'm a realist, and this is a serious problem that we need to deal with. So I guess we have to work together to do more education. Let's use that as our segue, if I can. You've been a huge advocate for education reform and a variety of different things. So why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of what you've been up to the last few years in the way of education?
Sure. Let me do the one final point on the water bond discussion. Bonds, too, it really just means up in Sacramento, when we got to pay for bonds, we got to prioritize how we spend our money. So having a bond doesn't necessarily mean we increase taxes. It may mean we eliminate government waste elsewhere in government and put that towards paying the bonds. But for something like water infrastructure, so critical that we do want to make that investment in the legislature. With respect to education, you know, that's been of utmost importance to me. You know, I'm somebody that's a son of migrant farm workers who through education and learning English was able to go to a quality university. I, you know, went to our local UC Irvine school, which is, you know, I got acclimated to Orange County and became to love Orange County so much. Then was able to get a master's in public policy from Harvard University there at the Kennedy School of Government. So I know the power of education, and I want to make sure that kids today have the same opportunities that you and I had growing up. And that means, you know, looking at our education system, knowing that there are many weak links, that we do have many consistently low-performing schools, and that we got to figure out how to improve those schools.
How do we, you know, because you know I'm involved down in the Orange County Science Excellence Committee. I'm on the same boat you are as far as the need for more education. One of the frustrations I find, though, is that while first and second generation immigrant parents in general are very let's go, let's educate, let's grow. But I see a trend of huge number of dropouts, a lack of investment. It seems like as you get to third generation or a little further on, they start to feel that entitlement. They don't really feel like they have to earn, work hard. I mean, how can we stop the progression? I mean, we're at what, 59+% dropout rate in some of our schools. What do you think we can do to convince the community, all of us, that without education we can't compete internationally? What is it we can do to help them do that?
Right. Well, two things there. First, the trend that you're speaking to, I think, is accurate. We do see kids that burn out of school and just don't think it's a relevant part of their life at that point. And I think what we've seen is a trend in many school districts throughout the state of promoting college. And I promote college, and I know we might be able to talk more about college attendance here in Central Orange County. But there's been such a focus in having kids be eligible for the UC and the CSU that we forgot to train those students that don't want to go to college, that maybe have a parent that owns a business, and that we got to begin to focus more on career technical education, where we make kids both career ready as well as college ready. And that's a new focus that I have, because I think we'll have a whole host of new kids that typically would want to drop out that now would see some relevance in the classroom, and know that them staying in school, them graduating from high school is going to lead to a job, a good paying job.
Now you're speaking directly to my history. I took advanced art courses here in Orange County and became a master goldsmith, and it was my career in the early part of my life. And I believe that the loss of industrial arts, skills-based education, right down to the basics of filling out a checkbook, has been ripped out of our school system because it's all about math and English now.
Correct.
And while I think math, English, and science are important, you have to have those life skills you're talking about. So I'm a big supporter of that. You have a scholarship program, do you not?
Yeah, I began to look at the trends of kids dropping out, as well as the trends of how there are fewer kids going to college. And one thing that I found is because people with college degrees are beginning to retire. Hopefully you won't retire anytime soon. Hopefully I won't. And I know we'll continue working for a long time. But because of the trends in retirement, we in about the next 25 years are going to have potentially 1 million less people in the workforce without a bachelor's degree. That's kind of the gap. And so we got to increase the number of people going to college, getting a bachelor's degree or advanced degrees. And that means we got to promote college. Especially here in Central Orange County, we have a lot of people from working class families or minority families where they don't have role models. And so I started a program called Solorio Scholars to help kids through the application process, help some with their application fees, because it now can cost $50 to $60 per application. So if you're applying to 5, 6 UCs and CSUs, that's $250, $300.
And you don't even know if you're going to get in.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a risk, and so I think people are downgrading their plans for what college to go to. And I want to make sure that they shoot for the best colleges, and that we give them information about financial aid so they don't get scared. That they also think about majors. Too many kids also just go into a college without thinking about the connection between the major and the career.
Right.
And I want to make sure that if they go to a university, they're going to come out with a degree that's going to get them a good career and a good wage.
College needs to be more than an extension of high school. I mean,
Correct.
That's the bottom line, I think, from that perspective. In the changes in education, we're facing budget challenges, and I have been into a few schools here in Orange County where there were 50 kids in a class. How do we deal with the issue that there are a lot of people who say we're already spending too much? We've got, bloated administration on the top end of education, less on the low end where the teachers are involved. Is there a way that we can inject some more balance, it seems like, to get the dollars to the classroom? Because it seems to me the number of administrators that we have is just too many. Right.
First, I would start off by saying that we're not investing as much in education as we should. I'll begin to speak about K-12, which is what you're talking about, but you look at higher education versus, for example, prison spending.
Yes.
we now spend the same on our prison system as our system of higher education, and that shouldn't be the case. And part of the reason why prison spending keeps growing so much is because we're not investing enough in K-12 education. And so we need to do more there, but with the dollars that we are currently spending, I agree with you that we need to figure out how to reduce the amount of administrative costs. You know, we have some school districts where administrative costs may be anywhere between 10 to 20%. You know, that's money that could go to the classroom. We also have county departments of education that are beginning to increase in bureaucracy to provide assistance to schools, and we got to monitor that. The other thing that's key too is, you know, we have like over 1,000 school districts statewide, and do we need so many? You know, why can't we do some consolidations in districts so that maybe rather than having, in some cases, 2 superintendents for 2 districts, why not just 1? Also, as we do, you know, payroll, as we do contracting, that we can centralize some of those things so that every district, you know, of these 1,000 districts isn't their own mini business. Why can't we consolidate and work smarter?
I think that's I think your point there is very valid in that we need to start treating these bureaucracies the way we have to run businesses. It's amazing how much productivity we manage to get for so much less money. And having 2 superintendents making several $100,000s a year and getting a lifetime pension at that equal rate just doesn't make any sense when you've got populations losing their homes and can't work and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your voter bill. You did a mail-in voter proposal that turned into law, did it not?
We have a great bill that's on the governor's desk that we're hoping he's going to sign.
So it has not been signed yet?
It has not been signed yet, okay. But it is on the governor's desk, you know, passed the Assembly and the Senate with good votes. And what we're seeing is that, you know, people have a higher tendency of voting if they get ballots in the mail that they then, you know, fill out and send back. You're one of them. And right now, people could sign up to vote by mail either by sending in a request in writing or by doing it online. But what I heard from our Board of Supervisors and our registrar of voters, that many people call in, you know, 1 week, 2 weeks before the election and say, hey, can you send me a ballot so I could vote by mail? And right now the answer is no, you got to go to your computer or send us something in writing and wait. And, you know, that frustrates people and it's slow, and maybe some do that, but it's not efficient. These folks are fielding the calls anyway, that they'd like to be able to, when they get such a call, to verify on the computer that they are who they are, you know, so they'd say, you know, address, birth date, other identifying factors, and then send the ballot via the mail. And then in terms of worrying about, you know, security, which I do care about, that gets done at the back end when they mail in their ballot. The registrar voter checks every signature on the back. So what I like to tell people to is be very conscious of your signature when you sign it, because oftentimes we think, oh, you know, this isn't significant, I'm just going to do a quick scribble here. We need to be mindful, because if it doesn't match, they may not count it. And so that's how, you know, they verify that the person that says is a registered voter is in fact that person that's on the voter roll.
So what's the likelihood that the government's going to sign the bill?
I think it's you know, a good chance. You know, he's very, you know, supportive of, you know, Orange County efforts, and you know, we all in government, I think, should want to have increased levels of voter participation. You know, we have some elections where, you know, 15% or less of registered voters actually vote, and that's only of the registered voter base. When you look at, you know, the percentage of the overall number of residents, it's even less than that. So we really do need to bump that up.
Well, I agree. I think if we're not getting enough of eligible voters to participate, that can be a serious problem for democracy. Then you get a small vocal minority speaking for the rest of us. I'd like to move to, if I can, to a little bit of some of the stuff that you've done very recently, and that is the deal with the Costa Mesa Orange County Fairgrounds. You had an emergency meeting today, as I understand it. Can you explain what that situation is all about for the people that are watching?
Sure. You know, the government, you know, looking at how to address our budget deficits. Last year we passed some legislation that would authorize the governor to sell some state buildings as well as some other properties, including the Orange County Fairgrounds. So that's kind of the general policy of the state right now, but we got to make sure on a case-by-case basis that those sales make sense for taxpayers statewide as well as local residents. Here with the sale of the Orange County Fairgrounds, we had the governor initially have a live public auction. The bids came in. The highest bid was $56 million. That really would have been, a fire sale, cents on the dollar for what the property is worth.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 150 acres of prime real estate just a little bit south of South Coast Plaza by 2-3 major freeways. That property is worth a lot of money. And so we need to make sure that if a sale is going to go through, that we get a good price. Also, there's been interest in having local control. There's also an interest by many, myself included, of maintaining a fairgrounds there. And along the way, we were able to convince the governor to entertain a discussion with the city of Costa Mesa about Costa Mesa buying it. And they were able to, work with some other private sector folks and putting an offer on the table of $96 million. But if a sale like that's going to go through, we got to make sure that the governance is strong. We got to make sure that the state's going to get a good share, that if the locals do receive any additional dollars, that it gets invested back into the infrastructure in the local area. We also need to be mindful of the employees that currently work there. There's about 75 of them, and we got to be mindful of what this sale might mean to them.
And a significant cultural impact, not to cut you off, but I think we're talking about a huge piece of property in the middle of Orange County. I mean, it could have drastic changes on all of the surrounding area.
Yeah, and somebody here in my building, actually one of the maintenance workers said, hey, I've been following your work and want to thank you for it. And he told me that for him it was akin to the fairgrounds being a national park. Mm-hmm. And that if that were the case, would the federal government ever sell a national park? And they wouldn't. Why would we consider something like that? And there's some sense to that. There's a lot of culture, a lot of heritage there with that property. People enjoy going to the fairgrounds. And so I want to make sure that we try to keep the fairgrounds there. I'm working very hard to ensure that. The governor, though, would quickly like to, get rid of it. And so we got to put checks and balances.
Serious issue with it going to a private party that is then going to fundamentally change the makeup of the area and not have that local control, because frankly it does sit in Costa Mesa. It is part of our county. It's been there a long time. So I want to encourage you to continue to fight to do what's right. While you have about a minute left, is there any message that you'd like to deliver while you have this opportunity?
I just want to encourage people in Orange County to be active in government. I know right now there's a lot of accountability. Folks are watching what their city councils are doing, what their county boards are doing. The work that we do in Sacramento, even though it's a little bit farther removed, really does impact the lives of Californians on a day-by-day basis. So I would encourage them to look me up on the internet at my Assembly site or on Facebook or on Twitter, because they can find me there. And I do want to hear from people and encourage them to go to my website or find me on Facebook or Twitter.
Well, and I'm going to confirm what you just said, because having been someone who's reached out to you on many occasions, you've provided what I consider to be unparalleled access, and I do want to encourage people to reach out to you when it's necessary. Thank you so much, Assemblyman, for coming in today, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
I'm Kevin McDonald, and you're watching Facets Television.
Hello, this is your Assemblymember Jose Solorio. Come learn more about me at www.assembly.ca.gov/Solorio, Solorio.